Now we're going to the second speaker. Elahe Amani will speak. Elahe Amani, an activist, women's activist, human rights activist, and a peace activist. For 25 years, she has been teaching about administrations in California State University. She is an activist of the Women's Affairs Commission of the United Nations and started in 1985, has been following up since 1985 women's rights and women's activities of the United Nations, and has been present in Beijing women's conference and also the annual conferences happening the same subject in New York. Her article in 1995 had a subject in Beijing of an Islam and human rights of women. In a conference in 1998 in Cuba, she took part in that conference and held 2 educational workshops, one on violence against women and the other about immigrant women's issues from those who immigrate to the United States. In Beijing 5, Beijing 10, and Beijing 19 was present in these conferences and has had a role in forming discussions and debates in many Islamic countries, especially Iran and Afghanistan, women's rights discussion that happening there. As a member of the Administrative Council of the Intercultural Network of Women, she has met with delegations in 2003 and traveled with them to Afghanistan, and as an educated Farsi speaking had an important role in coordinating non-governmental organizations there. Elahe Amani is present every year in the Women's Affairs Commission of the United Nations. In 2011, she held a educational workshop entitled Strategies that Look to Future, Technological Tools for Organizing Future Generations for Bringing About Equality of Women. In 2012, he held an educational workshop about technology and technological development for the women of the Global South and the developing world. In 2013, in a Women's Summit of the United Nations, she had a role in organizing 3 roundtable discussions on successful strategies in fights against different forms of violence against women, the role of the media and art in a struggle against violence against women, the roundtable on putting an end to stoning, and an educational workshop for women from around the world who were present in the meeting about keeping safety for activists and those who defend women's rights in internet and cyberspace. Currently, Ms. Amani is a manager of international projects of the Intercultural Network of Women, which is an international organization based in San Francisco. She's active there. Ms. Elahe Amani in 2012 was invited from the United Nations organization to take part in the Human Rights Council session that was dedicated to stoning. She held educational classes about conflict resolution in multicultural context. She's active there very much. In many years of her activities for human rights and especially women's rights, she has received many awards, and I can point out to a few of these awards. Prominent Woman of Year, a Women's Higher Education California in 2004. In 1998, she was elected as a distinguished member of the California State University Long Beach Distinguished Woman as a human rights activist in Frankfurt in 2001. All that I'm counting are her awards. There's a lot, so I'll summarize them. A commemoration of the 30 years anniversary of Women's Center at CSULB and in 2002. Feminist Lillian Robes Award for Feminist Activism, who was a Native American activist. This was given by Women Studies Program of the California State University, Long Beach in 2007. Women Intercultural Network has given an award for Leading Change Heroines and Heroes in 2010. And a Lifetime of Activism Award given by California State University, Fullerton in 2012. I want to ask her to start speaking, and the topic would be the women's rights violations in prison. سلام به همه. من در انگلیسی آماده کردم صحبتم رو، ولی به من گفتن بهتر است که من فارسی صحبت کنم، اون به انگلیسی ترجمه بشه. فکر کنم نسخه انگلیسی نهایتا در وبسایت منتشر خواهد شد. اولی من به فارسی صحبت خواهم کرد الان. When we speak of women and prisoners, the picture that comes to mind are women and children who face life problems because their husbands are in prison. But the reality is that not only in Iran but internationally, a number of women prisoners is increasing. I'm talking about all women activists, not only those who are activists or political activists, but all women who are prisoners, not only those who have been in prison because of their ideas or activism. In the report of October 2013 by Prison Studies Research, we can see that more than 1.2 billion prisoners in the world, which, when you look at those whose sentences have not been carried out yet, this goes to 11 million prisoners in the world. And 3 countries that have more countries in the world, which is partly due to their high population, is United States, which has more per capita prisoners than any country in the world, and then China and Russia. They have the highest per capita prisoners in the world. And if Iran has always a high rank when it comes to having a high per capita execution, when it comes to per capita prisoners also Iran is ranked high. And global statistics show that per capita prisoners is about 150 person per 100,000, whereas in Iran this number is 284 prisoners per 100,000. That is, if we add 16 people to it, which this is November 2013, this might actually be already there. Iran has almost double the capita. But among all these prisoners in the world, as I said, the number of women prisoners is increasing very fast. Even though there aren't clear research done on this, and that what has been done, the serious work that has been done, it's about 2000s, show a very fast increase of women prisoners in Iran, which has been done from 1997 to 2002. We can say that on average the number of women prisoners has had an increase of 12% per year, and from 7,000 in in 1981 we have reached to 661,130 prisoners in 2002. This increase has been very aggressive in Iran, so that the number of women prisoners in the 15 years that in this period has doubled, even though in the years after that, in the following years, the number of women prisoners in every 5 years it has been doubled, i.e. it has been exponentially increasing. The number of Iranian women prisoners is exponentially increasing. What I think is that a major part of this is due to discrimination against women in Iran, and not only talking about social activist women who are imprisoned for their religious beliefs or their other political beliefs, and that's what they are in prison. Majority of women prisoners are there for normal crimes, and based on research we can say that economic crimes, drug crimes, sexual crimes and moral crimes are on the top of the list, and everything else can be assessed in this way. One should say that the economic crimes in Iran are usually based on the sexual gender inequality that exists in Iran. Much of the research done shows that a large number of men give their checks, their unfounded checks, in the name of their woman, in the bank accounts of their woman, without women actually being aware of these bank accounts. A reality is that when women enter prison because of different crimes, they are usually cleared from the public memory. We can see that all over the world. Women who are prisoners, not only are their rights are violated by the governments, and I will talk about that in my PowerPoint presentation. There is more on that there, but also for the rights that every prisoner gets. But also, this violation actually goes toward the relationship of women with their own society, i.e. they get less visitation, they are more limited, their stigma is more, they carry more stigma, they go through much more physical and sexual and psychological harassment and suffering. And this is not true as much about political prisoners, women political prisoners, because they usually have a collective base of support and as Rezvan said, this collective support means that people from outside prison can come and see them, but for the ordinary prisoners we see less of this. One of the major reasons for the violation of human rights of Iranian women prisoners, one that I have not seen mentioned a lot in prison literature and Iranian media, is that in the year there are some laws called Bangkok laws. Bangkok laws are actually a series of laws that are about women prisoners and their rights, and they obligate certain governments to observe certain rights. Let me briefly talk about them. One is acknowledging the vulnerability of women and their children who live with them, the situation of the pregnant and breastfeeding mothers who are in prison, giving health facilities, giving clean water for taking care of children, giving cooking possibilities for women, for breastfeeding and for pregnant women. These points that are mentioned in the series of laws known as Bangkok laws, these are specifically about the violation of human rights of women in prison, facilities, preventive facilities for taking care of the drug user women, breast and eugenics cancer tests, given special attention given to young women prisoners, paying attention. Well, there is a lot of assessment in prisons, including some in Iranian prisons. Are these assessments, are these research gender sensitive? Are they gender sensitive, or all prisoners are looked at from a single viewpoint? It is very natural that women experience many more layers of violence and of violation of their human rights. The Bangkok document is not complete when it comes to the rights of women prisoners, however, is a result of efforts of a series of the women's international movements that has forced the international community to recognize the rights of women prisoners. Many reports from women prisons in Iran show that many of these rights of women prisoners in Iran are disregarded and have been broken, have been violated. In the branch 209 of Evin prison, which houses dissident Iranian women, has many shortcomings, not only when it comes to food, but also in medical care, hygiene, and medical treatments that government is obligated to give to the prisoners. In Qarachak prison in Varamin is actually another Kahrizak, one for women who don't have anywhere else to go. It is the Radio France that said they keep women there hungry, they collectively beat them up. These are among the sufferings that hundreds of prisoners go there, who are both of prisoners of conscience and common prisoners. This is Qarachak prison in Varamin, where hundreds of women live. This prison wasn't built to be a prison. It's a big hall without having cells. There hundreds of women prisoners are basically held. And just think about, if I just want to speak about hygiene, this enough shows how much of women's rights are violated. For 300 people there, for 300 women there are 4 toilets available. You can imagine how hard is the conditions. Also, based on the reports that we have received, what we can see is that the hygiene there has many problems. It's a very deplorable condition, so much so that prisoners there demand death so as to not live under such undignified conditions. As I said, also women prisoners in Evin prison also suffer from lack of health facilities in cold and hot weather. And also in Qarachak prison in Varamin, other reports show that from time to time prison guards, using the excuse of pacification and putting down the fights between prisoners, attack them with batons and hurt them, wound them, a number of women every time in every attack. Reports from the branch 209 of Evin prison show that all of the points of Bangkok rules has been violated there. These are all government obligations toward women prisoners. Based on the House of Human Rights in Iran report in 15 March 2011, a number of women guards in Qarachak Varamin attacked a 21-year-old prison and also sexually harassed her. Also, the families of Rajai Shah prison have published a letter to talk about the inhumane condition of the women's section of the mentioned prison. They protested these conditions. They have said this detention house is like Kahrizak prison, and the responsibility of the lives of the prisoners are by the prisons organizations and their related organizations. Medical and health facilities there are very limited. The life of the human beings are worthless there, and if prisoners are infected with something, not only the medical team does not treat them, but in some cases they are actually sent to the quarantine so that they could become improve on themselves. International community, when it comes to the defending the rights of women prisoners, recommends that women prisoners should be jailed near where they live. They should not be sent to far-flung places. This is one of the points that has been mentioned in international rules. This is so that they could have more visitation of their children and also support of their family, and when they are released, they can go back to their society with least psychological effects possible. As you know, when Mr. Sadegh Larijani was asked that why do you exile political prisoners, especially women, to the prisons outside the state, they asked him, do you want to gradually kill them? Does the judicial authority wants for these people to get all sorts of physical and psychological ailments after coming back to society and can never come back to society as a healthy society? The women and girls who are imprisoned in exile, they are mothers today and mothers tomorrow. This is a quote of a question asked by Larijani. Human rights activists also talk about the medieval conditions, the absolute not giving of food, starvation of women prisoners, rape of women prisoners in Azerbaijan, and the cell 209 of Evin prison, which each house 4 people and does not have air filtering, and this leads to many heavy headaches, and these are all examples of violation of human rights of women prisoners in Iran. In the end, I wanted to I talked a lot. In my English, at the end, they experience a large number of violations. Naturally, if a woman is imprisoned for her ideas, she also goes through more layers of physical and sufferings. One of the points that today especially is very prevalent in Iranian prisons is it's called white torture. This is about solitary confinement, that women prisoners are sentenced to these for continuous days and long periods. Thank you. Thank you for your friends for having listened to me.